And hello and welcome to another MovieBoozer.com virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken Ekman, and I'm joined by Bill Arsena.
Hey.
And Hawk Ripjaw.
Hello.
And we've got a few movies to talk about this week. The first one we're going to talk about is Captain Underpants.
Yeah, Captain Underpants, for those that remember, is the children's book series by Dave Pilkey back, this must have been 20 years ago. In fact, I want to look up when the first one came out. What the book series is about is that these two best friends, Harold and George, they go to high school together, to elementary school together. They're best friends, and they are constantly playing pranks on the rest of the school, and their principal, Mr. Krupp, absolutely hates them. And what they do is they use a hypno ring. Well, let me backtrack a bit. The two friends, they have a comic book series called Captain Underpants. And it's about a superhero who is wearing only a cape and a pair of tighty-whities, and he fights crime. But only
series that they came up with, the characters made.
Yes.
Themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And their principal is constantly overbearing on them, and one day they've had enough, and they use this hypno ring they got out of a cereal box to hypnotize him, and the principal thinks that he is Captain Underpants. And, of course, that causes all sorts of problems. So the book, let me see, 1997. Yes, so exactly 20 years. And there have been 12 of them, I think. Yeah. And then the last one ended on August of 2015. And then there was a spin-off called Super Diaper Baby.
Wow.
So just to put into perspective how zany...
The way you just said that sounded like... The way you just said Super Diaper Baby sounded like an Austin Powers line.
I really love the word diaper,
and
so every time I say it, I kind of emphasize it.
How quickly could you turn that into a disturbing series? All you need to do is change it to Super Diaper Man.
So
it just immediately becomes creepy.
Just kind of put into perspective how weird Dave Pilkey's series is. Here's some of the characters in the book series. There is Boxer Boy and Great Granny Girdle. There is... there is a villain. I forgot about this. The villain's name is Dr. Diaper. There is let's see. Oh, and the villain of this movie, Professor Pippi Pee Poopy Pants, who comes back in a later book as Tippy Tinkle Trousers.
Jesus.
Let's see. Sir Stinks-a-Lot. And Miss Anita Calculator. So, goofy shit. In any case, what? Yes, Anita Calculator. Dave Pilkey writes these books in a Japanese cave. It's fucking weird, right?
What?
He and his wife have a second home in Japan, and nearby that home, I guess, is a cave that he goes to meditate and write Captain Underpants books. So, in this movie... they're always playing these pranks, and the principal, Mr. Krupp, hates them. And this is kind of the first thing about this movie that's really funny, is that it's very zany. It opens up with them illustrating their own Captain Underpants adventure, and it's in a hand-drawn animated style, like very childish, colored in clumsily, about a little baby who is on an underwear planet, and when the planet's being destroyed, his parents stretch a giant pair of underwear between two sticks and slingshot him to earth.
It's like a ridiculous parody of Superman's origin.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the funniest things about this starting out is some of the more adult elements of it. A kid wouldn't understand this, but all of the teachers in this elementary school are just constantly giving off this air of just toxic nihilism. The teacher's like, memorize these dates: 1972, 1984, 1997, and like with no context whatsoever. And every adult in this movie is an absolute piece of shit that hates everything. even Principal Krupp's desk has a plaque on the front of it that says "Hope dies here." So he's got them in his office after one prank after another, and his plan is to put them in separate classes, thus destroying the friendship. So it's kind of cool, like in this kind of kids movie, like obviously if you and your best friend have different classes or work in different areas, you're no longer friends. But in these second graders' minds, that will destroy their friendship forever, with them being in separate classes. And then we go into another piece of really unique animation where they're talking about what's going to happen years later when they're no longer friends. And this is all animated. Well, not animated. It's shot with sock puppets.
Oh, so it's like their internal imagination is not animated. It's sock puppet.
Yeah, it's sock puppets. And then it's
like it's live action sock puppets?
Yeah, live action sock puppets. Like in little dioramas and stuff like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really unique. It has this kind of my first thought after I'd watched it all the way through is very similar in style, I guess, to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It has a very Phil Lord, Chris Miller vibe to it, with it's just a mad cat pacing, constantly switching things up, and just really just gleefully dumb and childish and juvenile, but in a way that made it really funny. Because, of course, the whole plot basically revolves around this new teacher comes to the school, and his master plan is to destroy all happiness in the world by shrinking the part of your brain that makes you laugh, because he's offended when people make fun of his name, Professor Poopy Pants.
I don't know who that was. You guys catch that. Okay. Well,
what's going on?
What's going on?
What do you mean?
There's noise. There's someone talking in the background.
Someone talking in the background?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing anything.
Not
it was
anymore.
on my side.
Might have been.
Oh,
anyway.
Sorry. I will go ahead and just say right out that if there's any noise in the background, it could be because of the walls in this building aren't exactly the thickest, and
okay.
I apologize for that.
That's all right.
All right.
So George and Harold are going to get separated in different classes, and so in just an act of desperation, Harold pulls out his hypno ring that he got from a cereal box, and he hypnotizes the Principal Krupp into thinking that he is Captain Underpants. So he immediately rips off his clothes and dives out the window to go fight evil. And the kids have to follow him around to try to stop him from fucking anything up, because he's just a man with no superpowers, even though he thinks he can fly and fight things. But of course, this leads naturally to him accidentally stopping crime now and then. Like gets launched through the air by bouncing off a giant gorilla balloon he was fighting and lands on top of a pair of bank robbers that are on their way out to the door. That's pretty much all there is in the way of the plot. I'm trying to remember what the Poopy Pants called the part of the brain that makes you laugh. It's like the ha-ha gaffa galakabus or something like that. It's like 3 different words for laughter crammed into one word to illustrate that part of the brain. You guys have any questions about it?
I mean,
any questions about a movie named Captain Underpants?
There's so many questions, and yet.
Well, okay. I guess for starters, how does this adapt? Like, how is this adaptation from book to movie? How does it work? Does it do justice to the story?
Yeah, it kind of borrows elements from the first 3 or 4 books in the series, but it flows like an origin story for Captain Underpants, and it kind of works really well, especially with how they handle things in the 3rd act. I don't remember much of the books, but they're kind of building a world in a really, really neat way. Not unlike any other superhero movie, but they're kind of expanding the scope of it. And so the next movie, if they make one, is going to be a little bit broader. Hopefully they do make a sequel. This movie was made for $38 million. They outsourced the animation to the same company that animated The Little Prince. And so they did most of the script and editing work in-house. So by kind of sprinkling around the labor, they were able to make the film for very, very cheap. Obviously, it only did 22 million, I think, at the box office this weekend. But of course, it was going up against Wonder Woman, which destroyed all sorts of records.
And
but
since
right now,
it's the only real kids movie that's out right now, I have a feeling in ensuing weeks it'll probably pull a profit. Plus, international numbers will knock that up too.
I think it's going to benefit from positive word of mouth as well. This movie already has like an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, wow.
Which is more than I would have ever imagined. And it's got extremely positive word of mouth. I really haven't, looking on message boards and stuff, I have not seen a single bad thing from fans. Like, in regards to your question, Bill, as an adaptation, it is a very strong adaptation of elements of the novel. Like, it really does a lot of great stuff. Even little things that I didn't recognize or didn't remember until I saw them in the movie. At the end of every book, Captain Underpants would like take off and the two kids are clutching to his cape going like, here we go again. And that happens at the end of this movie. One of the hallmarks of the book series was they animated action sequences through something called the Fliporama. So Dave Pilkey would have one illustration on a full page, and the next page would be a slightly different frame of that animation. And the idea is that you grab that page, the first one, and you flip it back and forth really quickly so it looks like the action is happening, like, someone's getting punched in the face repeatedly.
That's funny.
And they do that in the movie. They're like, okay, so we don't want to show all this, so we're going to do our way of doing it, which is Fliporama. And they actually describe the process by pulling out a piece of notebook paper and drawing on it and actually flipping it to show Captain Underpants getting his ass kicked by a giant toilet.
So it sounds like this is really like, as far as like fans of this original series will really dig it.
Oh yeah, and they're really eating it up. So far, I haven't seen anything bad about it. The only thing, this is hard. This is kind of where I'm a little having trouble discussing this because I like it, but I don't like it. I think the weakest element was Professor Poopy Pants. I think his joke, his shtick got a little bit old, but I have to remember this is a movie that's aimed at 10-year-olds.
I'll be honest, it sounds like a shitty character to me.
Yeah, right.
He's voiced by Nick Kroll and has a really weird foreign accent, like the not quite German, but like like a evil German character, all lots of V's and Z's in his dialect.
What is it with Nick Kroll playing bad guys in major animated features?
I don't know, but he seems to like it, and he's pretty good at it.
Is he a lot like the mad scientist in Amazing Spider-Man 2? The mad German scientist who was like, "What are you going to call yourself?" And he's like, "I'm Electro."
Oh, played by Martin Sokas.
Yeah, is he like that guy?
Yeah. No, not so much. Not quite as sinister, but he has that voice.
Okay.
He did create he has a gun that shrinks things and grows them, so that led to some really creative stuff in the final action sequence where just things are getting shot wildly, and just like the school shrinks and a bird gets giant and lip balm gets giant, and then a car shrinks and gets thrown at somebody. Like they get really creative with the animation, and that's the best part about this movie is that the animation is beautiful. It kind of has this. It has the look of the amateurish hand-drawn style of the books, but in a 3D format. And even things like when the principal slams his hand down on the table, you see the little impact lines pop out from his hand. When an oscillating fan turns towards him, his toupee leaps into the air and falls back down onto his head. And then little editing things like the two kids are walking into a school and you hear that song "Oh Yeah" from Ferris Bueller, and the floor is like lighting up as they're stepping on it, and every time there's a line of dialogue like "Ooh, beautiful," it's one of the other kids in the high school turning around and looking at them and saying that in slow motion. And then there's just weird stuff, like there's a kid they walk past like, "Hey, how's it going?" He's like, "Oh, it's all right, just another day," and then he gets into his locker and closes the door. So, I don't know. And they really lean into the fact that everybody at this school is completely miserable except for George and Harold.
That's funny. The kid is playing a preemptive strike on himself.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is.
Pre-bullying himself, yeah.
And I think that's what it is. But then later on in the movie, like 6 kids do the same thing during like a sad montage sequence. it's very strange and very odd, but incredibly satisfying with the really fast pace, really zany animation and ideas, and some genuinely funny parts. This is one of those movies where, you know, there's a lot of parents in there, there's a lot of kids. And in Lego Batman, I think is the same situation, but the parents were all laughing more than the kids because, of course, kids don't understand references to the Batman Adam West show. In this one, it was a pretty even mix. There was the really dumb stuff like poopy pants that the kids were laughing at. Then there were other parts where the principal has a nanny cam shaped like a frog, and he catches them doing a prank. So that's how he's going to separate them with that evidence. So they try to steal the nanny cam back by sneaking into his office. And he appears behind them. He's like, looking for this? And he rolls up his pant leg, and it's strapped to his ankle. And he's like, oh, I've grown quite fond of this froggy. I take it with me everywhere, even in the shower. And then a single tear rolls down the frog's face.
Wow.
So
that's pretty fucked up.
Right? But the only person in the theater that was laughing harder than me was a mom the next row down to the right of me. And like she was I thought she was going to throw up. She was laughing so hard, and her 3 kids didn't know what she was laughing at. So there's not too much adult humor in it, but there is some of that kind of innocently vulgar stuff in there, and little references and visual cues that are like, wow, that's kind of fucking dark when you look at it a certain way. But it's still done in such a way that it feels very benign.
So it sounds like a pretty solid recommendation for the most part.
Yeah.
Particularly for those who are familiar with the series.
Yeah. Somebody online was saying that they didn't really agree with the Harold and George origin story, like how they became friends. I agree. They didn't develop it very much, but they kind of saved it towards the end with the way they interact with each other. But asking for heavy character development in a kids movie named Captain Underpants is asking the wrong question, I think.
All right. Well, next on our list to discuss, Bill, you recently managed to catch a screening of It Comes at Night.
Yes. Ironically, it was at night. Press screenings in the East area.
Mm-hmm.
But the last couple of months, this one particular publicist group will actually schedule them for the evening times. So I thought it was very funny. You know, I was like, oh, it comes at night, and I'm coming at night to see it.
Okay.
No, I didn't. Wait, what? What were we about to say?
Nothing.
Oh. Okay.
Let's just say that you should be careful when you come at night.
Yeah, I know. I get it.
And this is from the director of that movie about the alcoholic mom from last year, right?
Krisha, yeah, it's by the director of Krisha.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name right now. It's a Ty. It's Ty Schultz. I think Tyler Schultz.
It's
I forgot
Trey
Schultz.
Edward Schultz.
Okay.
Krisha. Now that movie, I saw that last year, and that is one of the most painful movies to sit through that I've ever seen. It's not that it's a bad movie. It's that it's just a movie where everyone is a horrible human being, and you're like, why do I care about anyone here?
And I've been pretty excited for this because I went to go see Free Fire, and because that was an A24 film, that theater was or that movie was preceded almost exclusively by A24 films. So amongst others, you know, it had a Ghost Story, which I'm really excited for, and this, It Comes at Night, which I'm also really excited for. So I know you still haven't talked about it yet, but my biggest question going into this discussion is, what is Trey Edward Schultz doing making a horror movie, and how effective is it?
Krisha was sort of a horror movie.
Yeah, well, I can't answer to the question of why is he doing a horror movie. I can answer that this isn't really a horror movie. It's more of a tragedy.
Interesting.
There are horror elements in it. Don't get me wrong, but in any way, shape, or form, like for example, when I say it's not traditional, I mean whenever a jump scare is about to happen, the music goes silent, and then the jump scare happens. In this movie, there is no musical cue. If something happens, it's going to happen, and you don't know when or where.
Is it pretty heavy on the jump scares?
It's not heavy. The only ones that I remember were quick shots. Like the one of the characters would look over their shoulder, and then boom, you'd see something scary, and then it'd cut back to something else.
Oh, okay.
It'd be something like that, or it might be a door pounding, door from the other side. We don't see it, but we hear it. Items like that basically are utilized, but that's not really what makes this movie scary. Really, it's this is a very complex film of. Well, let me get into kind of what it is about in terms of like the actual story. It's set in the woods in a kind of a survivalist cabin compound. And I don't mean like the survivalist in those fucking reality shows, like on A&E or something, like
Man versus Wild.
What are they? No, not Man versus Wild. What are they called? Preppers, doomsday preppers, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
People. It's not quite that level, but the family, which is led by Joel Edgerton, and I should note too, this is a very racially diverse family. It's a family of three. It's when I say that, I mean it's Joel Edgerton, who is white, and the woman who plays his wife is, and their son is mixed, and and later on, when a certain development happens, we get more characters who are also a little diverse within their own unit. So I thought that was kind of interesting because my initial thought going into the movie was this was going to have some sort of race thing, kind of like Night of the Living Dead did. But there's no. The movie is Joel Edgerton and his family are out in this cabin. There's this unknown threat that has hit he used to live in or used to live around, and it has to do. It's implied that it's like a new version of the plague, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's no zombie threat. There's no like you get sick, you start killing people kind of thing. It's really just you get sick, you die. But you can infect others just by being around, like the breathing the air around someone infected or touching them can get you sick. So they have to be very protective and a little bit paranoid in order to survive.
Okay.
The movie starts with a death, character dying, and it's very emotional and heavy. Even though we don't know these characters yet, it's still it's still a sad thing to see. And when the movie really gets going, it's an intruder who is trying to find supplies for his own family, and they're a little skeptical of him, but in the end decide to trust him and family over into their house, and from there, hell breaks loose eventually. I'm not gonna. That's just in the general synopsis of the film. That's the text right there. I'm not going to get into spoilers as to aspects of the film, specifically the plot, but the movie reminded me very much of a Cormac McCarthy book as told by David Lynch.
It really does have that McCarthy vibe from the trailers.
Yeah, and I'm not even talking about The Road. I'm talking about No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
No Country for Old Men? For Gary Oldman?
What?
I don't know.
Yeah, you shouldn't even try.
When you said it, you said Old Men, and I was thinking No Country for Old Men.
Okay, now I'm off. I'm off.
It's what McCarthy cross David Lynch.
Now, all right. So thanks, Ken.
Sorry.
That's okay. That was funny though. Now that I think about it, I guess maybe I did say like Oldman, but anyways, it feels like a cross between those two, which is a very dangerous pairing in my opinion, because after the screening, I noticed the other critics were mostly perplexed as to how to feel and how to react to this movie. Mm-hmm. I thought it was pretty simple. I was like, you should be devastated. You should be completely sad right now for what has gone on. This was a tragic movie. and it was very heavy with heart and in a sad way. But they seem to make a joke out of it, like, oh, what was that movie about? The last time someone made a mention of what was that movie about in a movie theater that I overheard was for Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain. And after I watched The Fountain, two girls in front of me, what happened was they said, well, that was gay. Okay, well, maybe you suck. I mean, I don't know. I didn't have a response to them at the time. I still don't. But other than to say maybe you should get before you just throw that out there, No Country for Old Men. It reminded me a lot of that, but with more Lynchian vibes. No Country for Old Men already kind of has a surreal nature to it. The atmosphere, not necessarily in the narrative. Though even in the narrative, there are some elements that are very, that deal with fate and foreshadow and destiny, things of that nature. Yeah. And of course, we all know what David Lynch is completely capable of, especially now with the new Twin Peaks series.
The answer to that
which I haven't gotten to yet. It's what?
The answer to that is he's capable of anything.
Yes, he is capable of just about anything. And I really felt this movie was like a cross between those two, but it's not to say that's a bad thing. I think when you think of those two and you combine them, you think this is going to be something that's over a lot of people's heads. This might, be very divisive. And indeed, I think this is going to be a very divisive movie. I think you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, and very strongly. I don't think there's a middle of the way thought that people are going to have with this movie. But I don't know. I mean, I don't see combining those two. I can see other people having a problem with that. I see that as a treasure, honestly. Combining Lynch and McCarthy in some ways, or at least those kind of vibes. I don't know what else to say really without getting into heavy spoiler territory. I wrote a review for Film Threat that should be going up hopefully at the end of this week on Friday, and I'm review for another website called Occupy that's going to kind of talk about a different aspect of the film that I saw, which was how it's kind of about, or at least in my opinion, how it's kind of about how past generations kind of screw over future generations. Like how there's this mess that we have to deal with now, from the past generation, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not heavy-handed in that regard. It's just something I kind of observed and felt maybe that's what they were going after. There is an ambiguity to the film, Of course, I mentioned Lynch, I mentioned McCarthy. There's going to be some ambiguity, but it's not difficult. It's all very... if you give yourself over to the movie, if you just watch it and really let it flow over you, you should be able to catch on to what's going on, or at least come up with your own interpretation of what's going on. It's not really that much of a problem, I found, but then again, I'm speaking to myself. I mean, I was able to figure out what Inland Empire meant to me. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people haven't even figured that out for themselves. So you've seen that movie. Did you guys have any other? By the way, I would give this a total 5 stars out of 5.
Oh wow!
Like a toast?
This is a toast. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm a little interested to see it even more so now that I hear that it's not a traditional horror movie like it was kind of advertised. But
it was packaged as a very dark horror movie, but it is indeed dark, but it's more of a tragedy.
Yeah,
Okay.
it seems like a movie where when I saw the ad, it felt like to me that there had to be more to it, that it felt like the kind of thing that couldn't be advertised very easily.
That's definitely the case. This is I think the marketers saw this and went, okay, this is a little more artsy than we were expecting. How do we dumb it down a little bit for the trailers, but without far? Like, we're not going to just add in jump scares. We're not just going to add in some paranormal activity demon or something. We're going to, we got to just kind of do something maybe a little minimalist, which is what they did. It was just basically a walk down a hallway up to a door that's banging. And that's the trailer, essentially. And they kind of nailed it. The feeling of the movie. It's very much methodical. It's very it's very interesting. It's very silent at times. And when I say silent, I don't mean like it's just quiet. I mean, like, it's very calm on the surface, but there's a lot of stuff happening under the water. It's got a lot going on to it. Did you guys have any other questions or?
Not really. You got me really interested again because everything I've read a couple of reviews. Well, not the whole things. I've started a couple of reviews, and both of them have said it's best if you go into this movie knowing nothing at all. And I'm like, all right, well, I will not read your review.
I agree. I only saw one trailer, and that was not by choice. It just kind of played at a movie.
Right.
And
other
than that, I saw
a trailer at the theater a couple times, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing this. And so I thank you for giving us that review. Now I'm going to have to just
ask me to leave. I'm going to ask you to recuse yourself from the rest of this podcast, Bill.
Yes, show your way out of the door.
So the other movie.
Okay, bye.
The other superhero movie that came out this weekend, of course, is Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman!
AKA the movie that everybody expected to be shit. Well, not everybody. So I noted this in my trailer review, is that each of the DC films since or post Man of Steel have, and I say each one, it's just been two of them, they have followed a very specific sequence of events. The movie is being made. We hear reports of the studio is kind of messing with things in the movie. We see a trailer, and the trailer is pretty good. In fact, it's really good. Then we get really, really early buzz that is incredibly positive. And then, of course, with the last two movies, the movie came out, and we all realized we just got fucked. But with Wonder Woman, that last thing, of course, is not true, because the early buzz is positive, then all of a sudden the movie itself comes out. It's got a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, and everybody thinks it's really, really good.
Yeah, I think that, the buzz for Wonder Woman had its ups and downs. There was this, about 6 months ago, there was this famed test screening that went horribly wrong, and leaks were abound. People saying that the movie was just a disaster. And that's what caused some initial confusion from people who, for when critics actually started seeing the movie and reporting on it, because no one knew quite what to think.
Yeah. And I don't know what happened with that, because it's...
I mean, test screenings oftentimes are early edits of the film, and for all we know, maybe there was something that was cut out that would have changed it, but...
Patty Jenkins claims there is not a single deleted scene from this movie.
Now, that's interesting.
That's kind of hard to believe. I'd be willing to bet that there are some deleted scenes. Or at least
I'm going to guess... alternate scenes. I'm gonna guess she's kind of in a roundabout way. I think that in the completed movie there are no deleted scenes. There were no scenes that made it all the way to post and then got cut out. But I would totally believe that there were there were shots that were done. There were scenes that were shot and whatnot, and then they just decided to exit it then and there and not move into post with those.
It is entirely possible that she shot the script as it was written. and just moved to, and didn't cut anything out of that. Now, I mean, that's rare. That's incredibly rare. That's basically unheard of in Hollywood. But you know, I mean, it's if she's claiming that, I'm not gonna doubt her. What reason would she have to give another story?
Yeah. According to this interview with Patty Jenkins, she said, "We did not cut one scene in this movie, nor did we change the order of one scene in this movie from the script that we went in shooting with."
Wow, that's impressive.
Huh. Yeah.
I mean, the only scenes that got quote unquote deleted were different takes of a shot that they decided to go with, you know, a different sort of feel for it.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the story itself, there aren't any additional pieces of it. So no R-rated Wonder Woman 3-hour director's cut.
God,
it's rated R. It's good now. It's a good movie. It's rated R.
It's the best. It's the better because it's darker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I had a very good friend. This is what really cements this movie as great for me. A friend of mine put it incredibly well, and I just want to share this really quick because it is very indicative of what the problems are with the rest of the DC universe, cinematic universe currently. "The reasons I liked it," she said, "were purely based on how the little girl inside me was so excited to finally see a cool girl fighting bad guys without her being a cold-hearted, damaged asshole."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Can you put it any better than that?
That's no. I mean, it's true. Batman is basically the Punisher. He's basically Death Wish at this point. In
Superman is basically Batman.
And, well, Superman.
Go ahead.
What's that? I was going to say Superman's more. No, not quite. I was going to say Superman's more of like a depressed, bipolar, not jerk, but he's kind of like, I don't want to do what I'm doing.
Yeah, he's reluctant.
Why not? You know, he just looks down all the time. Like this is a burden.
He's like the guy that's stuck at a job because he doesn't want to move on and get a new job. He's where he is and whatever.
which is weird because this is the beginning of Superman. You think he'd be all gung ho and happy?
Yeah, I mean, what's this is in the first year of him being Superman. What's going to happen in a decade? He's going to be like just overweight, and just fucking addicted to drugs and just.
I'm sure there was a narrative reason for that, and that was he was still confused. He was still kind of like about his place in the world and stuff like that. But we kind of active is confidence.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like I don't have many problems with Man of Steel. I kind of think it's an entertaining movie. In fact, I'd say it's actually decent. Certainly not messy, but and I actually, when I first saw it, I didn't mind the kind of dour slant they were putting on Superman because it kind of worked for a darker universe. But then when you drop him alongside another hero who is also very dour, it completely throws the tone of the movie off kilter. In the comics and in the shows and whatnot, the interplay between Batman and Superman was always funny because Superman is a very, upbeat, confident, well-intentioned character, and Batman just fucking hates everybody. But now you've got two characters. It's not unlike
the interplay between Iron Man and Captain America. In how Iron Man and Captain America, Iron Man is the more contemplative one, and Captain America is the he's the golden boy. He's everything he does is because it's right.
Yes. And so the character dynamic just totally doesn't work in when you have two characters that are too similar.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when they're not developed as they should be. I mean, the Batman v Superman was we talked about this at length, but it was totally the wrong time in the DC pantheon for this movie to happen. But anyway, going back to the original topic, is that Wonder Woman completely eschews this by having a character who is very, very kind and well-intentioned. One of my favorite moments in the movie is they're talking to one of the members of the crew that's set out to, do the mission. And it's this guy who he is a sniper, and he also has PTSD. He has constant nightmares from the horrors of war, and he's a very good singer. He likes to sing for the crew when he's happy. and he's talking about how he's going to leave because they don't need him. And then Wonder Woman just looks at him and says, well, then who would sing for us? And then gives him this really nice smile. And it really cemented just that Wonder Woman in this movie is a kind, good character who doesn't have hate in her heart. And it made for a much more uplifting and impactful movie.
It's also interesting that Wonder Woman is actually a character in this movie, as opposed to Batman versus Superman, where she was there.
Literally Deus Ex Machina.
She was just there.
She was actually one of the best things in Batman v Superman.
She was
one of the few best things.
I would disagree. I don't think she was anything in that.
But she was cool.
She was cool, but she also was like.
What did she do in Batman versus Superman? Really?
Walked around and looked hot.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not crediting and giving any credit for that. I'm just saying I kind of agree with you, Kim, that she didn't really do much. The movie probably could and should have done without her. But the fact that she was in there, the movie immediately kind of got a little more energy in that last fucking shit fest that was the final battle.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's nothing positive I can say about Wonder Woman in that movie because she was barely in it, and when she was, she didn't do shit.
She needed way more development, but it was a welcome appearance.
I don't.
Okay, so my favorite, to piggyback on what you were saying about a moment that kind of established Wonder Woman for you. For me, it was near the towards the middle, before the No Man's Land sequence, where she was, which was great. I think that was.
We'll right talk about that in a second.
But this was when she was preparing to get on the boat to head, or the train rather. Yeah, it was a train, not a boat. She was.
I honestly thought it was a boat, but I don't know.
She was preparing to get on the train to head over to that part of Europe, and she has a bite of ice cream. And she looks at the guy. She was like, "You must be so proud."
Oh,
she says it genuinely too. She's not like being a bitch or anything. She's like, "No, you did a great job here with this ice cream."
She's fucking pumped about this ice cream, and she genuinely gives this guy a compliment. I liked that. Do you think Wonder Woman has had ice cream before? Or was that her first time?
That was her first time.
And also, remember, this movie takes place during World War I. This is the 1917, 1918 probably.
Yeah.
So
this was near the end. This was when the armistice was being negotiated.
What I'm saying is, ice cream was a total luxury in those days.
Yeah.
Like, refrigeration was a novelty at that point. Refrigerators weren't. Do you know what refrigerators consisted of in those days? If you were lucky enough to have one,
ice.
You had a box with a big block of ice on the top that basically radiated cool air down into the bottom of the box, and that's how you refrigerated. That when they call it the ice box, that's literally what it was. That's if you were wealthy enough to have ice delivered to your house every few days. So
this is a comic book movie with a fucking superhero. So
exactly.
Can we please have ice cream in alternate history?
Alternate.
Yeah. Okay, but she had ice cream. That was a nice little moment that kind of gave us more character about her. Beyond her being naive.
And that's another thing. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Well, she's on the island. She's very much wanting to fight. She's very much wanting to learn how to fight and how to do battle and protect the island and how to protect people in general. And then when she hears just the first amount of information about this war, the war to end all wars and everything, as Chris Pine says, her eyes are like open, like wide. Her face drops. She's just immediately like, we got to do something about this. This has to be Ares. And everyone around her is like, those are just stories. You know what I mean? But she's like, no, this has to be Ares. Ares is, of course, what happened. That doesn't matter. What matters is she believes that this is a problem that needs, and she's fully capable of helping. And that's ultimately what the movie's kind of about, is your own, convictions and strength in that and everything. But we were just talking about the no man's land sequence. I think we should get into that, because that's really the I would say the apex, or the pinnacle of the film there.
Really quick before we do that, I want to do something that kind of segues into that scene.
Okay.
Is that this movie does not sexualize Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot is a really attractive woman, but everything about her character in this movie was, again, her fish out of water situation, walking around London and carrying a sword and asking weird questions like, why are those two people holding hands? Stuff like that. And it's adorable and it's fun, but the movie never kind of treats like, look at how hot Wonder Woman is. Like, it never does that.
And I take it didn't go into the super S&M early origins of Wonder Woman, where her only weakness is being tied down by a man.
There is one scene towards the very end that kind of feels like a very light allusion to that, but it's kind of a stretch to say that.
I just find that hilarious. That the classic Wonder Woman weakness is that if a man ties her down.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But anyway,
well, I don't know. Yeah, she really, there really weren't any scenes where we look up her like that, or even are meant to gaze in a certain direction, or
she does break a gun over her butt, though.
Oh,
yeah, but I mean that was more of her backside. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was like her tailbone. Like, she grabs a gun out of a dude's hand and just smashes it over her back.
Yeah, it wasn't like a Michael Bay movie where we'd be right up her panties. Yeah, it would be something like that. I mean, she's dressed, well, but it's not like in costume and everything. But it's not like you just said. It's not sexualized at all. She's here to do a job.
Yeah, I mean, even her costume, it's doesn't accentuate cleavage. And then the bottom part is not leggings or a bikini. It's kind of a skirt type thing. So they kind of go out of their way to desexualize Wonder Woman, but it wasn't noticeable at all. It really kind of let the character breathe.
Yeah, I agree.
So yes, and that leads into this, because the no man's land sequence where, there's the two trenches and in the area between them that was completely barren and uninhabited and not able to be crossed because of the gunfire that would be erupting across both sides. And then Wonder Woman climbs out of the trench, and you get shots of her shield, her tiara, and her boots. But again, with the movie zooming in, the camera like really drinking in all these elements of her costume, it still wasn't sexualized. It was like a look at how fucking badass this is about to be.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that sequence in full. I mean, that, like I said before, that's really like where the movie that's Wonder Woman right there. That's where she's like I'm here to save the day. I'm here to stop this war. And she's walking through the trenches with her group, trying to get to the bad guy's lair, or where they believe the bad guy is. And as she's walking through this trench, explosions are going around, and she's looking at the people that are fighting. She's like, we got to help these people. We got to do something, And Chris Pine's like, look, you can't save everyone. Look, we have a mission. These guys have been fighting here for over a year and haven't gained an inch. Mm-hmm. There's nothing we can do. And she's like, well, I'm gonna do something. And she takes her coat off. She climbs out of the trench, and she just immediately starts taking on all the gunfire and dodging everything and all that stuff. And the rest of the group
water with her shield.
Right, exactly.
Fucking cool.
That was a good bit.
So cool.
That was a good bit. And then the rest of her little company of group, the mercenaries, they see this and they're like, she's kind of right. So they decide to join the rest of the troops that are in the. They all climb out and start finally gaining some ground, and then they move on to a village which is nearby and retake it. In some incredible fight sequences, but it wasn't so much the fighting that was the cool part. The cool part was the bravado that Wonder Woman showed.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Bill, on the Wonder Woman theme song?
The boom, boom,
yeah,
boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, that one.
I was caught off guard by it in Batman v Superman. I thought when they played it, when she looked at her at that, or when Bruce Wayne looked at her photograph of her from World War One, and they played that song, I was like, is this her theme?
If the sound editing using that theme within the rest of the film in BVS was fucking awful.
Yeah, they also chose to use it multiple times before she actually put her costume on. You know, like when she deflected Doomsday's energy blast, that should have been the first time we heard the song.
Yeah.
Now, it's worth noting that Batman v Superman has a different composer. The music for Batman v Superman was Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL, versus Wonder Woman's listed composer is actually Rupert Gregson Williams.
The music in this movie is good. I have a love-hate relationship with the Wonder Woman theme. Again, I love how we keep going back to BVS, be like, yeah, fuck that movie. But I have a love-hate relationship with the Wonder Woman theme because it was so poorly utilized in Batman v Superman, and then I wasn't really expecting it in this movie. But when it kind of shows up, it is edited into the film in such a way that it feels really natural, and you're like, okay, now shit's gonna go down. So I think it was effective in this movie, even though I'm not really a fan of the theme in general.
Guys, are you familiar with Rupert Gregson Williams' composing history?
No.
He has composed music for all of the garbage. Sandy Wexler, Ridiculous Six, The Do-Over, The Legend of Tarzan, Paul Blart Mall Blart 2, Blended, Winter's Tale, Here Comes the Boom, Grown Ups, Jack and Jill, That's My Boy, Just Go With It, Zookeeper, Bedtime Stories, You Don't Mess with the Zohan B Movie.
Okay, we get it. You don't have to listen.
How did he get this job?
He's just
yeah, that's what I want to know. He's just easy. He was available, I guess. So they were like,
but you know what? You know what his first score was, though, guys?
What?
Thunderpants.
Oh,
so anyway,
Thunderpants.
Oh boy.
Thunderpants.
How did he get Wonder Woman?
His score is really good, though.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he's a bad composer or anything like that. I can't speak to that, but he certainly does not pick the best movies to work on.
I laughed really hard towards the end of the village sequence in Wonder Woman, and I'll just say this. It's not really a spoiler, but there is a sniper in the tower, as there always is in these war movies, and he's shooting and pinned everybody down. And Chris Pine and his buddies pick up a piece of metal, and they like, "Here, come here, jump on this."
Oh,
and they launch Gal.
That's the thing. It's a callback to an earlier scene.
There's a fight on the beach where the general, the Amazonian general, uses
her aunt.
Yeah. She jumps onto a shield held by another warrior, and they launch her into the air, and she twists around and fires 3 arrows at the guys, which is fucking cool. But they do the same technique Wonder Woman does, and she leaps into the air and kills the guy in the tower. She doesn't just kill him; she fucks him up. Like she hits the tower, and the whole top half of the church just collapses.
Jeez.
And I was like, this is not really necessary for one guy, but it was awesome.
Well, it was awesome, but you see, this is something like in the Snyderverse we've become accustomed to, is a superhero going through a building and completely destroying it. But in the case of Wonder Woman, it's kind of okay because it was all building up to get the sniper. Yeah. And before that, she hadn't been destroying all that much. She's just been mostly fucking dudes up. But when it came to that, it's like, okay, get the sniper. And then she jumps up, and then boom. It was like this big impact. And it felt better than it did like in Man of Steel, where he's throwing everyone through trains, through buildings, through fucking silos and all sorts of crazy shit. Explosions are happening everywhere. The 7-Eleven
fast food restaurants.
Yeah,
right, through IHOP and everything.
We all know how Kendall's product placement in Man of Steel.
I should mention this real quick. The only product placement there is in Wonder Woman that I caught was for the Louvre.
Yeah, at the very, very beginning, sort of prologue in modern times.
And the end. At the beginning and the end, they show the Louvre. And I was like, when that's your only product placement, essentially is a
I don't
museum.
even know if that counts as product placement.
Nah, probably not.
If that were product placement, that's very good product placement because that shows a message right there where this movie's at.
So Ken, you got to leave in about.
You got a problem with the fucking Louvre, Ken?
I don't have a problem with the Louvre. No.
Okay,
Ken, you have to leave in 20 minutes.
I can make it work for a little bit after that, but we want to keep it pretty tight here because I've something I need.
Okay, so I guess we should wrap up Wonder Woman.
I just have a couple more things I want to talk about with Wonder Woman before Headshot. If we don't get to do our other two from earlier, I'll be okay. But I want to talk about this because I haven't met anybody that agrees with me. Is that I thought Chris Pine's character was kind of a jackass.
I
He's always like,
that.
Diana. He liked her, and his affection for her was like really kind of at parts felt like a high school crush that was unrequited. And I was like, come on, man, just fucking stop it. Eventually, there is kind of a romance between them. They don't really. They don't make it cheesy. They actually make it really effective, especially in a scene towards the end that I will not spoil because it's done really well.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Isn't his character supposed to be Wonder Woman's like boyfriend in the comics or something?
I don't know. I don't read Wonder Woman comics.
I don't remember honestly. Nor did I do much research on the character.
But he was always like he does a lot of mansplaining in this movie.
He does mansplaining in the movie, but it never felt like he was like being a dick about it. It felt like he was just trying to explain something, and he's also a man.
I think I kind of prepped myself. I was like, oh, it's Chris Pine. He's going to ride a motorcycle and mansplain things. Both confirmed. But maybe if I hadn't thought about it that much before the movie, it wouldn't have bothered me as much. Again, it's not enough to really be like, this really hurt the movie. It's just something that I noticed. The character dynamic between him and Wonder Woman was still pretty good, though.
Yeah.
If Michael Mann were to write an autobiography, it should be called Mansplaining.
Okay.
Michael Mansplaining.
Exactly.
Just mansplaining with two N's.
Exactly.
The other thing I wanted to quickly discuss is I really wanted to. I want to talk about this, but not spoil anything. I did not expect the reveal of Ares.
Oh yeah, that was very surprising.
I thought it was cool. So the character that Ares ends up being
suspected. We suspect one person.
You suspect one character, but it's
completely different.
Yeah, and of that character, I was like, yeah, he's probably a fucking bad guy, but I did not expect that character to end up being Ares. Because when I saw the actor, I was like, they're not gonna cast that dude just for a couple scenes. But I thought that's when it kind of kicks into the classic DC cinematic universe epic throwdown with fucking everything blowing up. But this climax took place in on an airstrip by a bunker and stuff instead of in a city where people die, and it was pretty cool. Of course, it did that thing, of course, where there's stage one of the battle, then in stage two, oh, now it's the real bad guy with like now he's in his final form, like video game style. But it was still kind of cool. Like the actor looked kind of goofy in the helmet of Ares, but other than that,
that part was a little silly because the guy just looks kind of silly in that suit,
right? But especially given who the actor was.
Yes. We're not going to get into that because that would spoil the fun. But
exactly.
What I felt was great about that scene wasn't just the fact that they were throwing punches at each other or shooting weapons at one another. It was what they were fighting for.
Yes,
there was a philosophy going on, a battle of philosophies, and it was almost. I'm not going to directly compare this to the end Jedi scene in Return of the Jedi, where Palpatine is trying to tempt Luke over to the dark side by having him fight Darth Vader. I'm not going to say that's the same exact thing, but there are some similarities in what those two scenes are trying to accomplish, and in a different way. But I think it's very effective in what it's trying to do, and too. You kind of get choked up at one point.
Yes.
You know, and that is when you know you got something special on your hands.
And that's what I was referencing in regards to the earlier way they handled things with Chris Pine and Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
It's again it does end up being a fairly impactful and even emotional film. Very well handled. It's amazing that this is Patty Jenkins' second movie, with her first one being Monster in 2003.
I think she may have done one other movie, but it was very small scale.
Did she?
I think so. Yeah, somewhere in between she did something, but she really hadn't done Monster, or maybe it was before Monster that she did something. I don't know. I don't remember the chronology.
Did a couple of episodes of various TV series, but and then there was a TV movie called Exposed. In 2015, but other than that, yeah, it's been an episode of Arrested Development here, an episode of The Killing there.
It's surprising because she's a director that directed an actress to win an Oscar, so she should be getting work. There shouldn't be an issue with that.
I'm guessing she's probably. I don't think she was not getting work. It's that she wasn't looking for work. Doing her own
possible,
thing,
or was getting work doing other things. I mean, it doesn't mean that she has to necessarily do one
career.
job.
Yeah, but I think we're also downplaying the Hollywood problem, which is
winning directors and whatnot. Yeah,
work in directing, or not being thought of in the same.
What's interesting though is that Patty Jenkins is not signed on for Wonder Woman 2 yet, so she stands to get a very healthy contract once she does, because of course Warner is going to want her back. What?
Well, if they do.
Oh, of course they will. This movie made a fucking shitload of money.
Here's the thing.
I think she'll be a likely candidate for it. Yeah.
I think what'll happen is by that time Zack Snyder will be back, and what he'll say is, so that movie was actually good, which means we got to fuck it up.
Zack Snyder is not directing Wonder Woman 2.
I don't think
so. He'll come back as a producer, and he'll hire someone else who's less.
I don't think so. I think Warner wants that money, so they're good. Warner Brothers traditionally has a one picture deal per director, so they didn't give Patty Jenkins two pictures, but the Wonder Woman performed significantly above expectations. Like they were expecting a $65 million opening, I think.
Well, it did well, so that
did very well.
Yeah.
It did extraordinary.
I believe they're calling isn't it the movie the highest weekend debut for a female director?
Yeah, out of the 5 female directors there are.
Oh, there's plenty more than that.
Right, there's plenty. You're saying that, but do people really know that?
No.
Can you name at least 5 female directors off the top of your head?
Well, of course, Patty Jenkins, and then there is. Let's see here.
Don't look it up.
Don't look it up.
You cannot Google that. Off the top of your head, I said.
And I can go Ava DuVernay,
right?
Jennifer Kent, Patty Jenkins,
Catherine Hardwicke,
Sofia Coppola.
Okay, there we go. There's 5.
Catherine Bigelow. Did we mention?
No, we didn't. So that's like 6 or 7. But between the 3 of us, we can only come up with 6 people or 7 people after like a lot of umming and ahhing. Again, that goes back to
what's her name? She's related to Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Sam Taylor Johnson, 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
Why do I know that?
She didn't do a bad job on that.
Oh movie, shit, Penny Marshall.
The movie sucked, but Patty Marshall. Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Penny Marshall.
Julie Taymor.
Okay,
I think we're done. We don't have to keep going.
Yeah. we established the fact that
exist, but it's just it's kind of difficult, and but they exist. They're out there, and it's just like they're very talented. A lot of them, or all of them, even though we have to give them the opportunity. So
Penelope Spheeris.
Okay, Ken, we're done.
Sorry, it was just I was trying to remember her name.
No, I
Ken,
appreciate it.
This isn't the female filmmakers podcast. This is the Movie Boozer Pubcast.
Well, you asked me the question, so I had to try to brainstorm.
Yeah, no, it's good that we actually came up with something because I was really worried that I couldn't have done it. If you challenged, if the roles reversed, I probably wouldn't be able to come up with 5. But it cements the problem. There's not enough female directors, getting this chance when nearly all of them have shown they are capable and or more than capable of doing a man's work, so to speak. Yes. She blew Zack Snyder out of the fucking water, and David Ayer, with a well-made. Go ahead.
I was going to say, on top of blowing him out of the water, no disrespect to Zack Snyder, or as I actually kind of like him and everything, but
I do. Yeah.
She not only blew him out of the water with regards to the DCEU, but also did so while I noticed the movie Wonder Woman had some slow-mo action scenes where it was like, it wasn't like slow-mo, fast-mo, like 300, but there were a few moments of slow-mo. And I was like, oh, that's like something Zack Snyder would do.
It felt very Zack Snyder, and it was super distracting.
But it kind of worked. It was a little distracting, but it kind of worked. I mean, you kind of got over it. It wasn't a big deal.
All right. Well, now that we've covered Wonder Woman, we're going to go ahead and move on to a movie that Hawk and I both watched. True Stories. We'll talk about that perhaps later. Headshot.
Yes. So as we've discussed, every week Ken and I will suggest a movie. One of us will suggest a movie to the other that the other has not seen, and we switch out every week. So I ended up striking gold and learned that Ken has not seen any of the Iko Uwais Indonesian martial arts films. So the one that I haven't seen either, and that I was really excited for, is Headshot. So I suggested that one, and we watched it. And Ken, you got to stop letting me just fire movies off the cuff that are rentable on Amazon, because this motherfucker is on Netflix as of June 3rd.
Oh.
For those that don't know, Ken and I, for Hawk and Ken Survive, we watched the Buddy movies, the Air Bud spinoffs. Yeah. And I rented every single one of those on Amazon without realizing that they were all on Netflix.
It wasn't until we got to the very last one where we were having just an offhand conversation about it, and I mentioned Netflix, and you said, wait a second, what?
Those are on Netflix?
Yeah, and which is hilarious, because just the week before that, and I totally told you that they were on Netflix, and can present proof of that. It just completely left your mind.
Yeah, I completely spaced it, and I spent $4 a pop on renting those guys.
Oh, and yeah, that's the best part. You didn't even you bought them in HD. You didn't even save money by buying the SD version.
Yeah, I rented in HD. I don't know why. I do things that are weird sometimes, but yeah, that was funny. But you know what? I am very happy to have contributed $7 to rent Headshot, because I think that was a pretty decent movie.
Yeah. As far as like martial arts action movies go, it had some excellent choreography, some wonderful gore effects that were really messy.
Oh, this movie is super violent. It's so gross at some parts. Basically, the story goes: this guy washes up on shore, having been shot in the head, hence the title, and he is, rehabilitated in a hospital. Apparently, I want to get grievously injured in Indonesia, because apparently you get your own female doctor that sleeps in the same room as you to keep an eye on you day and night. Yeah,
and will eventually fall in love with you and bang you.
Yes. Eileen is the doctor, and the guy is, what his given name after he gets back and can't remember anything. His name is Ishmael. So yeah, Eileen is with him day and night, sleeping in the same room on a couch just to monitor him, rehabilitates him, and then people start coming after him. And basically he learns that he was members of this foster family of children trained to kill. And that's why he's such a badass. But that's really, it's one of the things Ken and I discussed before doing this, is that the action is awesome. The plot is it's a little stale.
Yeah, the whole amnesiac action premise has kind of been done before, and that said, I mean it's a very simple premise and it's easy to bounce off of, and there are enough good elements about this film that make up for the relatively stale plot. I would say the performances from the lead actor and lead actress, Iko Uwais, and what's her name, Chelsea Islan?
Yeah, something like that.
Really, they have great chemistry together, and it shows. Isn't this like the third movie they've worked on together or something like that?
Who? I'm sorry.
Have they worked on movies before in the past, or am I thinking of someone else?
Iko Uwais and who?
Isn't the leading lady? Isn't she in other films with him?
She might have been in Mirantal, but I don't think she was in The Raid. Let me look it up while we're talking about it.
You know what? I think I'm wrong. I don't think she was. But either way, they have great screen chemistry, and it translates into a really you really care for both of the characters. And
Yes.
When ultimately, of course, this is a movie in which the badass tough guy falls in love with a girl, of course they're going to go after her.
And that was one of the things, speaking of the romance, what was kind of weird is that I have been, the reason I went for Headshot is that Iko Uwais, he is in Mirantal and then both the Raid films, all directed by Gareth Evans. And Evans, or I think it's Evans, yeah. There's Gareth Evans of the Raid and Gareth Edwards of Godzilla and Rogue One, and I always get them mixed up.
Yes.
But the Raid films are very lean and incredibly brutal. They don't have time for all that romance shit. And then you have Headshot, which is, I believe Uwais choreographs all these movies himself. He's the lead choreographer. And seeing a movie with that same style of violence, but then you have these really sweet moments of romance, and then ending with like the last couple scenes, pretty kind of powerful moments of these two characters. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit jarring because in one scene you have the two of them kind of laughing and being friendly with each other. Then another scene, you have a guy who has his punch blocked by a typewriter, rips it off, and finds metal shards embedded in his fist, which he then uses to fight.
Yeah.
Which that was probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. Is there is this ridiculous fight sequence inside a police station where every manner of office equipment is used as a weapon. Phone, typewriter, those giant paper slicer thingies.
Yeah. Oh God.
He slices the guy and it gets stuck in his arm. And he keeps fighting with it just sticking out of his arm. And
the gore effects in this are wonderful.
They're really good. This movie is crazy violent. To the point where I was like, oh my God, what the fuck?
Well, the movie opens up with this amazing sequence in a prison break sequence. And where this very intelligent criminal convinces basically he does a prison break and convinces all these other prisoners that they're free to go, when really he's set them off as cannon fodder so that he can walk away without having to do the real work.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking violent. There's a scene where where a whole bunch of prisoners are armed to the teeth and they go down a hallway, and then you see a bunch of guards with even bigger guns at the end of the hallway, and then they duke it out, and it's just everyone dies.
There's an awesome, like, in these movies, people get shot in movies, they fall over. In this movie, they stay standing and just like jerk around like just like hundreds of bullets just like rip through them, and then they fall down.
It's very Sam Peckinpah in that respect.
Yeah, I love that these Indonesian action films have a spectacularly overblown style of violence that is really kind of gross, but kind of like, yeah, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And how that clashes with the romantic subplot, which
that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, is that like it shouldn't work, but it does. You have these quiet moments of really sweet romance and just these two characters that are they're pretty well developed for how much focus of the film is on the action. And you really feel for them, and they work well together. And the way that they juxtapose those two things is really effective.
Well, you just made me think of a sequence from 28 Days Later which was equal parts brutal and romantic. It was towards the end. I think it was the climax where the main character releases a guy that's by rage, and they both attack the compound, and then finally reach the two other survivors, the two women survivors, and right before Naomi Harris, she's the one of the survivors, right before she's about to bash this guy's skull in because she thinks he's got the rage in him, it turns out, oh, it's not. She immediately goes right for him and kisses him. Once she realizes it's not, this guy isn't infected, and it's the guy that just saved us and everything.
Right.
So it was a tender bit, and then it went into a little bit of comedy when the young girl tries shooting him. Like, oh, I didn't know you're not infected. And they're like, what the hell is your problem? So it's possible in a movie to shift tonally in drastic ways. It's just a matter of I've never actually done this in a movie because I've never made a movie, so I can't. I want to say it's a matter of editing and probably a matter of plot mechanics, where they're at in the story, and how you can't just do it there. You got to do it over here, that kind of thing. But it sounds like in this movie, you guys, that it's a lot more distinct, the differences between the romantic sequences and then the brutally violent sequences.
I think that the romantic sequences kind of built the intensity of the action sequences because they established that these two characters really feel for each other. So it really drove the brutality and the intensity of the fights, because that Ishmael has something that he's going for. It's still the plot itself still lacked forward momentum. It's kind of like, I don't really give a shit about his amnesia and his past life. I just want to see him save the girl. So if I were to rewrite this movie, I would completely jettison the amnesia and just have a killer betrayed his folks and got shot in the face, and then he comes back fully cognizant and wants revenge on them, and then they kidnap his girlfriend, then he goes after them. Just kind of a leaner revenge story, cut out maybe 20 minutes of plot development, because this is a 2-hour movie when it really doesn't need to be. And then just kind of like let the action flow together a lot better. The last half hour of the film has a lot better pacing than the rest of the movie because it's just nonstop from there.
Absolutely.
It's almost like a video game, or he fights 2 mini bosses and then gets onto the final boss where they have a crazy fight and then that's over.
So yeah, long story short, I'll just summarize by saying that Headshot I recommend. I think it's a solid martial arts film with good performances, amazing action sequences, and really that should be enough if you're a martial arts fanatic.
And I'm really excited, Ken, for you to watch the Raid films. Like, I'll be recommending those later on, because I am seeing this after the Raid films and had differing expectations.
Whereas I've never seen them. So
yeah, so you'll be seeing the Raid films after Headshot. So we'll go into the films with different expectations, and we were primed differently. So I'm really excited, and especially because the Raid 2 is probably in my top 5 action movies of all time.
Well, since you recommended a martial arts movie for me this week, my recommendation for next week is going to be the wonderful, and Bill A., I don't know if you're familiar with this film, but the wonderful martial arts comedy, The Last Dragon.
Oh, it's a comedy?
Oh, you've not seen The Last Dragon?
It is not the film I was thinking of then.
You were probably thinking of a Bruce Lee movie or something.
I think of a Brandon Lee film, and I can't remember this, but it ends in a building in a room with there's a lot of foliage around, a lot of greenery and shrubs and stuff, and there's gunfighting and I think mirrors and lots of martial arts. But
this isn't that movie.
That's what?
That would be Enter the Dragon, but that's not Brandon Lee. That's Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay. So I'm glad that you were able to know exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, no,
Dragon, I've seen many times.
It's wonderful, isn't it, Bill?
And it's a wonderful film. I saw this was one of the movies I grew up on, and I didn't even understand even back then it was kind of a campy movie. I thought that this was just a fun movie, you know. I had fun with it.
Let's not go into too much detail because I'm curious what it'll be like with Chris going in completely. Yes, going in.
But I'm gonna. Where is that streaming?
It's on Amazon. Just The Last Dragon, 1985. You'll find it.
Is it on Prime? Is it on Prime or is it?
I don't think it's on Prime. No, I actually ended up when I saw that it was available. I just bought it because, quite frankly, it's that good.
It's worth it. It really is.
Yeah. So do we have time for our last two, Ken?
Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll be quick about it.
Speaking of movies that I just bought because I saw them on Amazon, was another recommendation I had for Ken, which was the French film Micmacs.
Micmac, paddywhack, give a dog a bone.
Micmacs Sautier-Legault, or however you say it in French. I'm not a French person, so I don't know how to say it.
It specifically, it translates to nonstop shenanigans.
Which the movie is. Bill, have you seen this?
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen the trailers for it.
Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
Yes. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's very uplifting. It's very silly. Basically, Bill, just for a little bit of background, this involves a man who works at a video store, and during an altercation outside, a gun falls and goes off, and the bullet flies straight into his head. When he's in the hospital, the doctors opt to leave the bullet in because they don't want to remove it and risk killing him. When he gets out of the hospital, he has lost his job and his apartment, so he's homeless. And he moves in with a family along the riverbank who, what they do is they take trash and junk and they convert it into useful items and gadgets and creations.
Now, you call it a family. It's almost more of a commune of homeless people.
But they are a family.
Yeah. They're not related.
No, they're not related, but it is a group of homeless people that have come together as a family unit. There is a mother figure. Right. There is a father figure. Everyone has their own role in the organization.
Yes.
This guy Basil then learns that the manufacturer of the bullet in his head and the manufacturer of the landmine that killed his father in Africa
as a child, when he was
when he was a child, he was a child, not the dad.
Yeah,
he lost his dad when he was a child. They are across the street from each other, so him and his family work together to pit these two weapons manufacturers against each other to take them both down at the same time. So it's like a heist / romance / comedy / thriller. Like it's
/ political treatise against the arms industry.
Yes, it is incredibly unique, and it is so quirky. And one thing, Ken, that you said that I acknowledge but don't necessarily fault it for is that you say Jean-Pierre Jeunet's style has. Tell me in your own words. What did you call it again?
Well, I'll just say what I said about the movie Amelie. It's a movie that is so quirky you almost want to kill yourself.
Yeah, you said it's all you. I think what you said is it's almost sickening.
Yes, it's to the point where it's so quirky and so ironic. It's grotesque to an extent.
And I wouldn't call it grotesque because I love this movie, but every frame has something weird on it. Like there's a part where there's an oscillating security camera that does a double take when it spots Basil. And it's delightful in my opinion. There's just so much of it that feels so alive and busy. There's one of the quirks Basil has is that every once in a while the slug in his brain will get him to a point where he starts to like have a little bit of a seizure. So he either has to slap himself in the face or he has to really quickly in his head run through a list of synonyms for a single word.
Okay.
But what were some of your other thoughts on the movie, Ken?
I enjoyed it overall. I thought it was a very funny, quirky movie. I enjoyed the story and the sense of humor. There was almost a Terry Gilliam-like sense of wonder in the story that I enjoyed, and the satirical elements also very, very Gilliam-esque. Yeah. And the cinematography is, of course, gorgeous. Jeunet is a master of that. So yeah, I rather enjoyed the movie. I think I really I find it interesting that the film opens with Basil working in like a rental store, video rental store, and he's watching the movie The Big Sleep, which happens to be what puts him in the coma.
Right.
When he gets shot by the bullet, he goes into a big sleep. So that was an interesting little piece of commentary.
I liked his romance with the what's the word?
Woman?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. She's super flexible. She can fold herself into a box.
Contortionist.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. She literally like crawls into like a refrigerator and it's contortionists kind of creep me out. I'll just say that.
She was really cute though, like especially her interplay with Basil, and to call back to Wonder Woman's high school romance type thing, they had that same kind of vibe, but it was really adorable. Like they have their ups and downs. He doesn't really like her at first, and then they tussle a little bit, and then they like each other, and it's really it's an adorable movie. That was the word that my friend and I used to describe it when we first saw it 6 years ago, and that's the word I still use to describe it now. It's just an adorable movie.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next quirky movie. Because he chose a very quirky comedy, I chose a similarly quirky movie, the 1986 film True Stories, which was written, directed, and starring David Byrne, and actually also co-written by Stephen Tobolowsky.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently he consulted Stephen Tobolowsky because Byrne was not very into the film industry, but he was a good friend of Tobolowsky's, and so he asked him for advice on writing the movie. And so he gets while Tobolowsky says very little of what he wrote is in the final cut of the movie, he was given top credit because Byrne didn't want the film to look like a, he was the only one involved in the making.
Okay. So having seen this, I would really love to see Byrne illustrate a documentary about suburban life.
Yes. Well, this movie is really a satire on American culture in general, specifically small town culture.
I got a very strong, especially during some of the scenes driving to the town, a very strong Mr. Rogers vibe from David Byrne.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, and it was really pleasant. Like I definitely got some good head feels from listening to him talk about stuff.
Yeah. The movie also, besides David Byrne being the narrator, the cowboy hat wearing narrator, it also stars John Goodman, Spalding Gray, Pop Staples shows up in the movie, which is great. That's a great musical reference for those familiar. I mean, of course, David Byrne, steeped in the music industry, would do that. Pop Staples is the blues singer and head of the gospel group, the Staples Singers, of whom Mavis Staples is also a member. And they were really one of the first gospel groups that crossed over into mainstream, like mainstream secular popularity, because they had a series of hits in the 60s. And he plays, if you don't remember, he was the voodoo guy who was also the personal assistant to the girl who never left her bed.
That guy was fucking weird.
I know, yeah.
I was watching him sing a song, and I was like, he's gonna fucking kill somebody.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, sing a song for a reason. He's Pop Staples.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I saw that made me just smile, because Pops died like 10 years ago, and just like a few months ago, I purchased an album that his daughter Mavis completed on his behalf of like old recordings that he had not completed prior to dying, and it's made me tear up a little bit. So anyway, but long story short, True Stories is very episodic. It's a series of these different sequences leading up to an event that is called the Festival of Specialness or something like that. celebration of
Something
specialness.
like that, yeah.
That marks the town, the small town of Virgil, Texas's sesquicentennial.
Yes.
And the event is sponsored by Vericorp Corporation, a computer plant that basically owns the town. And there's a lot of fourth wall breaking in the movie, and it's just I don't want to go too much into depth, other than to say that the movie just has this inherent wistfulness to it that it moves effortlessly from sequence to sequence. It's one of those things where if it was in the hands of a more professional filmmaker, they might have tightened it up too much. It flows very much like a sawn bite.
Yeah, there's a very kind of lazy, relaxed. I don't want to say lazy. There's a very relaxed feel to the film where it kind of just it doesn't need to get to the next scene all that soon. It's just it wants to kind of see what these characters are doing and then see what's happening later on.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I would recommend this to anyone who's looking for something unusual.
All right, so that will do it, right?
Yeah, that'll do it for this week. We will go ahead and.
I just want to quickly call out next week. We'll be discussing It Comes at Night once, if anybody else has seen it. Megan Levy, which probably none of us will see, and The Mummy, which I will be reviewing, and I'm very excited. Apparently, this is a huge piece of shit, and I'm waiting. I'm getting hungry for this.
Ew.
It's directed by Alex Kurtzman, by the way.
Yeah, fuck that guy. He's
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I like Alex Kurtzman. He makes some fun stuff, but sometimes he doesn't because he wrote the second Transformers and some other shitty things.
Star Trek,
Into Darkness, which I didn't like. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I'm a closeted, slightly liking of that film. He wrote Edge of Tomorrow, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I think that Alex Kurtzman is
did he write Edge of Tomorrow? I'm not seeing it here in his.
Did he what?
I don't think he wrote Edge of Tomorrow.
I think he wrote the story, not the script.
Yeah, he's not credited as a writer.
Huh? He's credited as a writer on Metacritic.
Oh well, I'm on IMDb here, so.
Okay. Well, anyway, Alex Kurtzman is a very passionate guy who doesn't quite always get the right people to realize his vision. I have respect for him. He likes what he does, and I love that.
Yeah, he also wrote Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, so that's unforgivable. But yeah, The Mummy. All I can say is, if this movie fails, do you think that will immediately stop production on all the other planned movies in this dark? What was it called? The
Dark Universe.
Dark Universe.
Dark Universe. They don't even call it the Universal Monsters thing. Well,
yeah.
Why do you do a gritty fucking Universal Monsters? By their nature, there's a campiness to them. Why can't they keep that?
I saw a video the other day that was really funny. It was like, The Mummy channels the classic monster vibe of tortured, monster characters. It's like, ugh, Frankenstein's sad. And that's what makes him good. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not what The Mummy is going to be about. I think they're bullshitting me right now.
Not to mention, I knew The Mummy was going to be a problem when I saw that the Mummy itself is basically the same character as the villain in Suicide Squad.
So check it out. They were going to do a different design for the Mummy, but then the end credit sequence for Days of Future Past had that kind of version of Apocalypse.
Mm.
And that was pretty much the exact design that Kurtzman had in mind for his Mummy villain. So after seeing that, he had to completely rework the design of the character.
So instead, he decided to steal from Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think she's way cooler than Suicide Squad Enchantress. I can see that right now.
No.
Sophia Boutella is kind of awesome, and I'm hoping her Mummy is awesome as well. But And when I say awesome, I don't mean actually awesome.
Some of the Rotten Tomatoes blurbs include, it will be argued that this one was made not for critics but for the fans, which is no doubt true. Every con game is played with suckers in mind. That's from A.O. Scott at the New York Times.
What fans?
There's fans of Universal Monsters.
There's fans of Tom Cruise, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go see it. Not for I'm a fan of anything. I'm a fan of movies that suck.
One person calls this movie Night and Day with bigger effects budget. I never saw Night and Day.
It sucked.
Yeah. The Mummy does what it's supposed to do with little originality and almost no life, says Daniel Egan of the Film Journal International.
Dan Jolin of Empire says, an odd but frothily entertaining genre cocktail which coasts on the charisma of its two biggest names and keeps things just fun enough to forgive its considerable lapses in narrative.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure it's not going to be good. All right. Well, anyway, I actually do now have to go. So talk to you guys later, and have a good night.
Yeah, you too.